First of all, I would like to thank the scientific committee for accepting this study as an oral presentation. I would also like to point out I have no conflict of interest to declare. Since the incorporation of time-lapse technology in our labs, when we refer to or hear about multinucleation, fragmentation, blastocyst collapse, reverse cleavage, or direct cleavage, we always associate these events to a bad prognosis. For some time now, Institut Marquès has been working on studies related to embryo auto-repair, and we have presented several papers at national and international congresses on this matter, as well as an article currently in review. With this study, we wanted to evaluate the true impact of one of these events, direct cleavage, in the daily practice of our laboratory and specifically in cycles in which we performed PGT using NGS. This year, at Eshre 2020, we have presented a study in which we share our experience in PGT. Nowadays, trophectoderm biopsy is considered the standard technique in most laboratories, but in our lab, we perform biopsies on day 3 as well as day 5 without observing significant differences in blastocyst rate and ploidy rates nor in diagnosis. Neither do we observe differences in pregnancy rates, evolutive pregnancy, nor miscarriage rates. Given these results, each case can be individually evaluated to decide which strategy is the most convenient for each patient. Considering this, we asked ourselves, does direct cleavage always have a negative impact on the final result in PGT cycles? When we face these cases, is there a better way to manage the situation for these patients' benefit? In current literature, we find various interesting articles related to this subject with different approaches. We are presenting a retrospective study in which 11,168 embryos were included corresponding to 3,175 cycles. Embryo culture was performed in single media culture with time-lapse incubators. Two groups were defined: a first control group of 10,051 embryos without direct cleavage, and the second group of 1,117 embryos with at least one direct division in one of their cell division cycles. This second group was subdivided according to the cycle in which direct cleavage was observed. First, as you can see in the video, second or third division cycle. In both groups, we separated those embryos on which PGT was performed. For both groups, embryo development up to day 5-6 was evaluated, as well as good quality blastocyst rate. As was to be expected, rates for both events in the group without direct cleavage were higher, the differences in both cases being statistically significant. It is relevant to see that good quality blastocyst rate was higher in the group with direct cleavage the later the direct division occurred. And ultimately, what is really important is to observe that good quality blastocyst rate in the third group with direct cleavage was similar to that of the control group. To be able to answer the questions we formulated previously, we only considered those embryos on which PGT was performed. If we consider embryos biopsied on day 3, those in the group with direct cleavage showed a significantly lower ploidy rate than those in the control group. Nevertheless, for embryos biopsied on day 5-6 at blastocyst stage, ploidy rate, pregnancy rate, and evolutive pregnancy rates were similar to the control group. Differences in mosaicism rates were not significant. Given these results, we can conclude that if an embryo is capable of developing into a good quality blastocyst, events that are linked to bad prognosis may have been resolved. The later direct cleavage occurs, the smaller its impact on embryo development. Embryos with direct cleavage that reach blastocyst stage have a similar reproductive potential compared to those without direct cleavage. From our results, in cases where PGT is recommended, biopsy of embryos with direct cleavage must be performed on day 5-6. Thank you very much for your attention.